Welcome csc103 class to Circles Input using our Trinket kind of web-based interface and using our Python language and using our turtle modules. And we're just going to make a circle any size we want by inputting the size and the color. Here's an example, and this is really easy. I'll just throw in 50 down here in my little input area and hit enter. And then a color, I'll make it green and I'll hit enter. And it makes a green circle that's size 50 pixels, and the whole thing is 50. And one thing I just want to mention is that when you put in a size for a circle, and there is a circle function already, so we don't have to do like sides or anything like that. What it does is it actually uses the radius. So whatever size you put in is typically, if you put in 50, it's going to make it like 100. So that's why we're going to do a little divided by 2 thing, just so when you put in 50, it'll make a 50 sized circle. That just, I don't know, kind of visually it helped me a little bit. So that's what we're going to do, and we're also going to make sure it centers up and down. So it's going to start at X, and they always start at X in the middle going this way on your X axis. So it always starts at 0 on the X axis, but we want to make sure that it's always centered this way. And what we'll do, we'll just use kind of a negative number. We'll kind of set a variable so that it kind of goes down negative from whatever the size is. So we're going to make a new Trinket. So remember, when you make a new Trinket, you could use once you log into Trinket, you could go to new Trinket and you could choose Python. And here's my new Trinket right here. I already had it open. And then give it a name, and I'm going to call this is 13, and it's circle input. It's actually not circles, we're just making one on this one. And I'm going to put a V because I'm recording a video, so because I have other versions here that I've done. And you could just save it, and we're going to start off from scratch here. We're going to do our import turtle, and what we'll do is we'll make a couple variables here, and you could check your instructions to see what kind of variables you need. For 13 circles input, we're going to need size, start X, start Y, and color. So we're going to need a couple variables here. So after we do that, I could even make a comment that says variables. That just helps me. And then we're going to do size equals, and I'll just put a number in for now. Start X, so we know where to start, and that's actually going to be 0, so that's not going to really change. And then start Y, that may change, so I'll just put 0 for now. And then we're going to do color, and I could just use color, or you could use CLR, whatever you want to. Maybe I'll use CLR. I used it on another one. And I'll put equals, and I'll make it red because I always seem to start off with red. And make sure you could double click on something and then put the quotes on afterwards. So we need that. Now, one thing I just want to point out, that when we draw the circle, and I guess I'll wait, but when you put in size is actually the radius. And what I like to do is sometimes kind of divide that by 2 so that when you put in 50, it looks like a 50, the circle looks 50 and not double the size. Because it's odd, you put in 100 and it's going to be 200. It's going to be huge. So we just have to, I might put in a little kind of calculation that cuts that in half. Now, let's get our turtle started. So we'll create a turtle instance, and we'll call him Tommy. And we'll do Tommy equals turtle.turtle, or use our turtle class. And we could do a couple things with Tommy. We don't have to give him a color yet, but we're going to go Tommy. Well, actually, we should. We'll go Tommy.color. Now, color is his property, and the property he's going to get is going to be CLR. So whatever because we're going to use a variable. So that's going to be his color property. And what else do we need to know about Tommy? Tommy needs a goto. So we'll do Tommy.goto, and he's going to need an XY, and we're going to use start X and start Y. So we can use those. That'll basically represent an X and a Y. As long as they represent numbers, that's all that matters. Python wants you to have a number here, so even as long as the variables represent numbers, that's all that matters. So it needs an X and Y somewhere on the grid here. Then we're going to draw a circle, and this is a real easy one. We don't have to draw sides. We just have to do, and it uses size as a property, so I'm going to put size in there. And we have color, we have all that. And I'm not sure what else we need. I think we're okay. Unless we want them to disappear at the end, we could do a Tommy.hide turtle. And also, we're probably going to need a begin fill and an end fill, but let's just see what we have. We'll just save this, and let's just run it. And there's my circle. And you can see I put in 50, but it's double the size. So it kind of, let me just run it one more time. So you can see it kind of makes a bigger one. So we might try to make that a little bit smaller. And it is in the center. It starts there. All right, so we want to make him begin fill and end fill. So we'll do that. We could give him a color first, and then we can we'll do that before he draws the circle. That's where we want the begin fill. So we'll do Tommy.begin fill, and we don't need any kind of argument in there. And then after the circle, we'll do the end fill. And that's what we need for that. So let's run it and see how it looks. That looks good. Okay, so again, it is starting here at the X and Y. So what I'm going to do with start Y, I'm going to do negative, I'm going to try to do negative size. Let's just see what happens here. If we do negative size, that means it'll move down 50. So let's run it. And you can see that actually works. That's actually it's starting on the center and it's doing a little go to. Now, if you don't want that line there, we could get rid of it. We can do the pen up and then a pen down. We could do that pen up before the go to so you don't see that line if that's a problem. So I could do Tommy.pen up. I'll do pen up before he goes there, and then after he goes there, I'll do Tommy.pen down so that he can draw a circle. And I'll run it. And now he kind of drops down and draws the circle. So negative size puts him in the right place there. He drops down 50. What I wanted to do for this one to make it a little different, I just put size equals size divided by 2. So that when you actually put in a 50, it looks like a 50. And let's just see what happens. Okay, and let's make it 100. That way you can make it a bigger size. And everything is kind of running. And just if you're not sure where what's happening here with the start Y, because we have start Y equals negative size, I'm even going to go down here and say print. This is one way. If you don't know what number, so if you're like, well, I don't know, now that I'm dividing it by 2, I don't know if it's still doing it in the right place and all that. So what you could do is you could print and you could just put start Y. And what it should do is output the start Y down here in the little kind of console. So I'm going to run it. And it should be 0. Or it should be negative 50. So it should be negative of whatever that is. So I think that's right. Let me check it out again. Let me put 40. All right, so it looks like it's always in the middle here. So so even by changing that, just by doing negative size, that's still working out so that it's doing it the right way. Because we're basically cutting this in half. So whatever negative size is, it's cutting that in half too. So it's always going in the middle. Let's try one a little bit bigger. I'll make one 75 and I'll change the color green and try it out. Okay, so it's always making a circle in the center. Okay, so that's not a big deal, but what we're going to do is we're going to put an input in here so people can put in the size, or user can put in the size, and user could put in the color instead of us just changing it. So that way we can kind of enter it down here. So we're going to use an input, and what we'll do is we'll keep the variable, and we're just going to put input here. And input requires a string. So in parentheses, we're going to choose a circle size, and we're going to use a colon. And then this whole thing, we're going to put quotes around it because it has to be a string. So we're going to put quotes around that so it should show up red in Trinket with quotes around it. And you do need a colon there so it knows that it's asking for input. I'll get rid of this 75, and that's all we need there. And then we're also going to do the same thing with color that way people could put in a color too. So I could just highlight this little statement up here and just replace it down here so I don't have to retype it and choose a color. And hopefully people will know what kind of color to put in. If they choose a color that doesn't exist, it'll just make it black. So we'll just choose a color here, input color, input size, and we'll see what happens. And I'll put a circle size, I'll put 50, and I get an error. And the error I get, it's saying string and int. So it's reading this as a string and not as a number, even though we typed in a number. The problem is, and we're going to use another exercise where we actually do that and it won't matter. But because we're doing math here, because we're dividing it by 2, it thinks you're using a string and trying to do math, and it's not sure it's a number. So in order to make sure that it's a number, and if you go on to your instructions here, you'll see this, I think on page 2, you could use float or int and wrap the whole thing with parentheses. Float means you could use a decimal. Int means it's just going to be an integer. So whatever one you use. In this case, it doesn't matter as much. You could use float. That way you could make it a 25.5 or something. So I'm just going to put float around here. And when we do another exercise where we actually put a number of sides on a polygon, we can't use float because you can only have a regular number. You can't have a decimal number to make sides of a polygon. So we're going to put float around here. That basically ensures, and you could put a little comment here, ensures it is a number, not string. because string is just text. Text is, even a 15 can be a string. If you add 15 and 15 as strings, it'll be 15, 15. But if you add 15 and 15 as numbers, it'll be 30. So that's kind of the way strings work. So this will do the math to cut that in half. So that should take care of our error there by doing that float. And let's just run it again. And I'll put in my circle size. I'll do 50 again. And I'll hit enter. And I'll do teal. And there it is. And I think it's in this. I think it's in the center. All right, I just troubleshooted here. I put in a print start x just to make sure it's starting at 0. And it is. It just seems, based on where this thing is, it seems like when I put the comment over there, I threw the comment on a new line. It seems like it threw that off a little bit. It does seem like it's off center, but remember this area here is only 400 by 400. It's 200 one way, 200 the other way, and so it's a small area. So when you throw it off, it kind of gets off center because you're not seeing it's not stretching and keeping that screen in the middle. So I think we're okay here because it is showing my start y is -50 and my start x is 0, so it always is starting in there, so that didn't change. So I think we're okay. So everything's okay there. I don't really need this down here, but I'll leave it there. And again, I think we're good for input. We just need to do the float input, circle size, circle color, so that whenever you run it, somebody could put in the size, and you could put in 100. And if you want to put in the color and put magenta, there it is. Now it looks like it's in the center, so it just must have been the window getting scaled, which kind of messed that up. So that's what you want to do. You want to make sure you save that when you're done, if you have this code okay, and then you just want to share it. Hit the link button and copy this, and then you want to go back to your course, and you want to find, in this case, it's exercise 13, and I believe in unit 7, here's 13, circles input, and I already have one in here, so I'll add another one. And the way you do that is clicking on this hyperlink button and pasting, and it'll paste it in both areas. It'll display it and use it as a link, and make sure you change this to new window and hit OK, and it'll help if you make it a little bigger. It's just easier to click on when you make it a little bit bigger. You can make it like 12, and that's it. So although that didn't look like it got bigger, I don't know if, but there it is. So now when you click on it, this will open in a new window. When I see it, I could grade it real easy because I could click on this and see it. And that's really it. So that's exercise 13, circle input. It's basically just using an input kind of method here to let the user put in a value for size and put in a value for color. And we're taking those in variables and we're just kind of filtering them through kind of our actions here, or statements of Tommy the Turtle.